Hey everyone, how's it going? It's Josh Ferris here. Welcome to my channel. We're going to be talking about some important news that's coming out. This last year we've had an eviction moratorium that has been put forth partially by the CARES Act, and it's affected primarily federally assisted or federally backed loans and also housing. So if you have a loan that is partially funded by the feds or Fannie or Freddie Mac, and then also if there's some kind of a help, so like a Section 8 or something like that, some kind of government assistance program that's been affected. So initially back in March of 2020 with COVID-19, there was a 120-day eviction moratorium, so a block on evictions in order to help people out so they weren't evicted and on the street because they lost a job. We know there's a lot of turmoil, not only in health, but also in the economy with people's jobs and whatnot. So we're gonna get in it today. Make sure to like, that does a lot of good for this channel. And if you've got a comment about where you think real estate is headed after this last year, then leave your comments in the comment section below. I really appreciate that. So let's go ahead and get into it. This was a federal judge appointed by former President Trump, and she put out a ruling saying that the CDC overstepped its bounds in continuing and implementing this eviction moratorium. So let's go ahead and take a look. There's a 20-page judgment opinion that she wrote, and we're also going to take a look at the New York Times article about it. So let's go ahead and get into it. So the federal judge strikes down moratorium on evicting renters. The Biden administration will appeal the ruling, and it's been the subject of legal challenges by landlords, right? So anytime that you have a contract in place, like a lease, let's say, and there is the government can't come in and just get rid of the contract, right? It's one of the rules, I think, in the Federalist Papers, or it could be even in the Constitution, that the government can't come in and disregard contracts, right, that are agreed upon by two separate people. So landlord and tenant have agreed on certain terms. The landlord will provide a certain access to a piece of real estate, and in exchange for that, the tenant will pay a certain sum of money every month. And if there's a time where the tenant does not pay their rent or doesn't hold up their end of the bargain, then the landlord can evict them and say, hey, you know what, I'm going to go ahead and look to another renter for this property. So that is a contract signed. You know, if you've ever been a renter and you've signed a lease, you know that it's, you know, hey, I'll do this, I'll pay you this amount of money, and I'll get this in return. When the federal government comes in and says, hey, you cannot evict somebody even if they're not paying their rent, you know, under these certain circumstances, that could be an infringement upon the contract that was made between the landlord and the tenant. And I understand for maybe a short period of time that might be important, but I agree with this judge's comment about how the CDC overstepped their bounds for creating this eviction moratorium. And especially that lasted this long. It's been almost a year now. And I know a lot of mom and pop landlords that have had some real struggles with not being able to evict their tenants, and their tenants either taking advantage of the system or legitimately having problems with their rent, being able to make rent, and it's caused a lot of problems. So let's go ahead and get into it. A federal judge on Wednesday struck down the nationwide moratorium on evictions extended by President Biden until June 30th. And here in California, they have followed that. So June 30th is the time that the eviction moratorium is set to expire, but they have extended it a few times. So who knows, maybe they would have tried to extend it, or they will try and extend it. But this judge is saying, hey, no, you can't be putting this eviction, this nationwide eviction, because of this health situation, and it's not appropriate. So the Judge Dabney Frederick of the U.S. District Court for the District of Columbia, this is the most significant federal ruling on the moratorium yet, and it follows three similar federal court decisions. Now, the Justice Department did file an appeal, and they requested an emergency stay in the order placed pending a decision by the higher court. She agreed to a ruling to put a hold on until May 12th, so that's only about a week away, giving the landlords the time to file legal papers, opposing the longer delay. Now, the issue here is that there are different and conflicting court rulings. Now, I'm not a lawyer, so I don't want to speak on things that are outside of my scope, but this most likely ruling will affect the individual plaintiffs and defendants in this case, and the individual ruling. But it can be used as precedent, I'm sure, in other cases where landlords need to evict, either for a sale or for non-payment. So as you can see here, the tenants' rights group said the decision on Wednesday could leave more low-income and working-class tenants vulnerable to eviction in coming weeks, as the Biden administration is beginning to disperse tens of billions of dollars in aid to help them catch up on unpaid rent. Now, there are about 8.2 million people that have reportedly been behind in rent, and we've also seen a 65% decrease in eviction filings in 2020. So that means that there's a lot of landlords that have wanted to evict, but they haven't been able to because of this moratorium. What does that mean for you? Well, obviously there's the renters, and then there's landlords, there's the government, there's a lot of different competing interests, right? I personally am of the opinion, I agree with the judge, I think that it's not appropriate for this extended period of eviction moratoriums and basically making it so that one party can not follow the contract that was mutually agreed upon. I think that sets a bad precedent. I'm not the judge, I'm not making a decision, I'm just saying that I agree with it. I understand both sides, that we're in a pretty unprecedented time, but I think it sets a bad precedent for almost an entire year or longer than a year of having this eviction moratorium. Now, the moratorium was enacted under the Public Health Service Act of 1944, which gives the federal government the power to impose quarantine and other measures to deal with health emergencies. The question, this is what she says, question for the court is a narrow one. Does the Public Health Service Act grant the CDC legal authority to impose a nationwide eviction moratorium? Wrote Judge Frederick. It does not. Okay? And the case was brought in November by the Alabama Association of Realtors and a group of real estate agents who claimed the moratorium shifted the burden for rent payments from the tenants to landlords at a time when many owners had been struggling to meet their expenses. Now, there is another perspective. They're saying they couldn't come at a worse time, and they would be, tenants' rights type folks. So we're seeing there's some conflict of interest. And if we take a look here at the original commentary, we can see that she wrote a page, 20 pages kind of explaining her decision and talking about the case. And this offers, I think, a real interesting perspective. So what does that mean for us? Okay, so I think that it means that we're gonna have a lot more houses on the market. So all of those evictions that didn't get filed last year are going to be filed this year, right? So unless those renters suddenly got their rent payments and could go ahead and pay their rent, those landlords who wanted to sell last year are probably gonna say, hey, now that we've gotten this point, that this judge is making this decision that it's not allowed, let's go ahead and evict, let's put our house for sale, let's go ahead and get new tenants, whatever it is they want. Maybe they moved out of the area and they just can't, they don't want to keep that rental unit for whatever reason. Maybe they wanted to move in, who knows? There's a lot of different reasons, but I think that we're going to see, as buyers, we're going to see a lot more houses be brought to the market with this eviction moratorium being lifted and being declared not lawful. And we'll see how they respond to this, but I think this is an interesting case, and we're seeing some pushback for this eviction moratorium, and that may open the floodgates to more opportunities for evictions down the road. And like I said, that increase in inventory for the rental market and also for the purchase market. And then we'll see whether or not the federal government steps in and they continue to assist with the rental aid. So a lot happening, but this was an interesting one I wanted to talk to you about and bring it to your attention. And like I said, appreciate if you've got any comments, go ahead and leave a comment below. And please, please, please go ahead. You can see it right there. Take that mouse, take that finger, and go click on that like button. It really helps me out a lot. I'm doing what I can to bring you important and relevant information in these times. Hope you all have a great day, and I'll talk to you later.